Hi, this is Rachel from the Dotting Center. Happy holidays! It's time to make some ornaments. We've been making a new one every year together since 2018. Let's face it, we all live in a world full of perfectly curated robot-designed plastic stuff. Let's rebel against the mainstream corporate Christmas ornament machine and make our own. Who's with me? In today's video, we're going to be making this cute little guy, the standard adorable gingerbread man. We're going to use air dry clay. I'll share with you all different kinds of design ideas using various different shapes and sizes. We will go step by step through making our own little gingerbread ornament. We'll use bottles, and I'll show you the difference between heavy body paint and soft body paint. We'll also make a cute little star gingerbread. So adorable. We'll go all the way through the whole process. Even at the end, I'll show you how to use ribbon to tie it up to your tree. Handmade ornaments are imperfect, precious little objects for your tree. They add this sweet little heartfelt, homey vibe, and they are just adorable. Just like this fluffy doodle right here. Aw, Woody says hi. For this project, you'll need Das modeling clay. It comes in terracotta, stone, and white. I used white. I got the 1 pound bag and I made probably 40 ornaments out of it. Very affordable. Plus you'll need a rolling pin and some cookie cutters. All different shapes and sizes. I honestly feel like any shape would look good as a gingerbread ornament. Just pick ones that inspire you. I think gingerbread looks good with any color scheme too, so it doesn't matter what colors you have going on this year. Gingerbread is like the cute little brown purse that just goes with everything, you know? You're gonna need a gingerbread colored paint. I found this Folk Art Matte Coffee Latte shade is just perfect. For the paints, we're going to be using a bottle kit from the Dotting Center. This is gonna allow us to pipe on the paint to make it look extra realistic, kind of like sugar icing. As far as the white paint goes, you can use any white paint that isn't fluid. So something that has a slower flow rate, a little bit thicker consistency. Multi-surface paint is perfect. Usually it has just the right consistency. And then at the end, we're gonna spray it with the triple thick glaze for a nice glossy finish. So the clay comes out of the package just like this. It's ready to go. You don't need to knead it or condition it in any way. You just want to roll it out into about 1/4 of an inch thick and then cut your shapes out just like you would cookies. Now that the shapes are cut out, just weed out all of that excess clay using a palette knife and just be careful around all the edges. Make sure that the excess clay is then recycled. Just put it in a big old ball in a plastic bag and save it for your next project. So this next step, you just want to take some time and smooth out all the edges and really take your time and use your finger with a little bit of water. Smooth out any wrinkles on the surface or any jagged edges. That will really come in handy at the end when you're painting and finishing and you don't have to sand. You really don't want to sand, as this stuff says not to sand it. So if it says it on the package, you best listen. The next thing you'll need is something to poke a hole in the top of each ornament just so that you can tie a string or a ribbon or cord to your ornament. So dotting tools, pencil, a straw even would work. You just want to pick a good place to put the hole and then just place it there. Make sure it's big enough so that you can use ribbon or a cord. You can get creative at the end with something to hang it on the tree. Once you've completed that step, let your ornaments dry overnight. Now I'm going to use a flat palette knife, and you just gently want to raise these ornaments up off the surface. Just kind of slide it underneath and gently peel it up. So it's going to be dry on the top, but it's still very, very wet underneath because there was no air getting to the underside. So the top is going to be dry. See how the bottom is still wet? And use this opportunity to smooth out that bottom of the ornament so that that too can dry flat. So take a little bit of clean water on the end of your finger and smooth out the wrinkles where the clay is still wet. You can see it's still malleable, and you can just really smooth it out. You can then use a palette knife or something flat and really kind of flatten out that surface. That way you can paint it and maybe paint a little message on it, write the date, sign it. It's always good to have a nice clean looking back. Now let those dry all the way. I gave it a couple of days just to ensure that everything was completely dry and cured before the next step. The next step is painting. Isn't this the most gingerbread looking color? It's cafe latte, but you don't have to use this. You can just use a gingerbread color paint. I'm sure they're everywhere. But this had really good coverage. It was nice and opaque. And you just want to give it a couple of coats. Make sure you get the edges and inside the little ribbon hole and let it dry. Now, since we're painting with bottles, we're going to be using soft body paint and a heavy body paint. All the paints that I'm showing you right here are perfect choices. It just depends on the look that you're going for. If you want a more puffy, thick paint that looks like the sugar icing that works on a gingerbread, then you'll want a heavier body paint. And if you want something a little less puffy, then we'll use a soft body paint. But I'll show you the difference. They paint differently and they dry differently. So it'll be fun to see how different that is. Now I always start with guidelines. I need some kind of a design beforehand, otherwise I get lost. We'll be using heavy body white paint and piping it out with a really wide gauge tip. This is going to make that paint stand up on the surface just like sugar icing, and it's going to give it a cool 3D effect. So whenever you use heavy body paint, you want to use a wide gauge tip, because if the tip is too small, it's not going to come out. It's going to require too much pressure in order to get that paint out. But the way that you see it is the way it's going to dry. There's no shrinkage. For the bow, I found that you can do two little like sideways hearts, and notice how the tip is pointing towards the rounded end. This is not up and down, the tip is sideways. And that's important because the way that this paint comes out of the tip is the way that it's going to dry. So be aware of that. Now what I'm going to do is take my stylus tool and pull from the middle. You know how bow ties have that kind of indentation in the center? Why not? And now we're going to add that center part of the bow, just like that. And there it is. So here we'll add the buttons, and you just want to squeeze out a little bit, and knowing that this is heavy body paint, that tail that comes off can be just smoothed out with the tip. Now watch this technique. We're going to do kind of like a rib knit with the tip. See how it's laying almost horizontal to the surface? Push out a bit of paint and then pull. See how it pulls like a little string, like a string of pearls. And that is one way to get a really cute kind of designy looking line. And now for the bottom of his sweater, let's make some little tassels. So you just want to make some dots, take a stylus tool, and then drag that paint up. Now let's place one dot in between each of those teardrops right at the top. And that's going to give us a cute little pattern. And there he is. Oh, so cute, Mr. Gingerbread Man. So now you want to make sure that you let this dry all the way. And now I'm going to show you a second option. This is for a star. Everybody can find a star shape. For the star, I'm going to be using this soft body multi-surface paint. It's Mondo Llama. It's a pearlized paint. You can get that at Target. I'm still going to use the same large gauge tip at the top. You'll see the difference in the flow rate of this paint, as well as how it spreads and how it dries. It acts completely different than the heavy body paint. Even though I'm using the same gauge tip, you'll see a difference. And you can do different things with soft body paint that you can't with heavy body paint, and vice versa. There are pros and cons for both, and it really just depends on your project and your goals for your project. So I divided out the star into points, and then I segmented each point into halves, and I'm going to make little swooshes, 5 little swooshes that extend out from the edge and into the center. So now what I'm going to do is show you something that you can only do with soft body paint in bottles. I'm going to use a thinner gauge needle, and this is the pink one, so you can see the difference. The hole is just larger on the one that's on the bottle than the smaller one, but you can get finer details using a smaller gauge tip. So we're just going to replace that, and I'll show you how tiny you can get these dots. So this is real time, just placing these dots in a straight line. The great thing about this is that you don't have to reload a dotting tool every time and you lose your place. You basically just use this needle and push out the next dot. It is such a time saver, and it is really, really handy for super, super detailed dots. And it just makes lines a lot straighter, and I love painting with bottles. Now we're going to finish this one with a big dot right in the center, and then you're going to want to let that paint dry. I would give it at least 4 or 5 hours just to make sure everything is super, super dry. The last and final step is just to take a wet rag and wipe down all the chalk lines from your ornaments and make sure they're clean and ready for varnish. So one of the things I love about this project is it gives you immediate constraints because you have a base color gingerbread and you have to use white and white only. So you have all these different shapes, and you can play and get creative with how you dot each shape, and that makes it so fun. Now it's time to seal and protect our ornaments, and we'll just use a light coat of varnish. I love this stuff. This is Rust-Oleum Triple Thick Glaze. I got it at Home Depot or Lowe's. I can't really remember, but you can use it on all kinds of things. Just a light coat, and then let it dry, and then a couple of hours later you can reapply a second coat and get it nice and glossy. So now while that dries, we'll just zoom out and I'll show you a sneak peek of our next project. I wonder how those holes got in those ornaments. We're gonna have to find out next week. So now I wanted to show you up close the difference between those two paints. So the gingerbread man on the left has the heavy body paint, and you can see how thick that paint is and how it has nice raised elements on it. The paint just dries nice and thick. And then the Christmas tree is using the soft body paint, and you can see here that the surface is just, it's a little bit raised, but not puffy. It has a different look to it. So it just depends on what look you're going for as to which paint you're going to use. And don't forget to sign the back. Here I'm using a Sharpie paint marker, and that's always a nice touch. Now you can use a variety of different cords and strings and ribbons to attach to your ornaments so that they can hang beautifully on the tree. I think this is just a nice way to add another design element. Just, it's your personal preference, whatever you think looks best. Here are just some of the ones that I made. For the gingerbread ones, I ended up using just a natural cord with a little bow at the top. And there we have it. We're going to add some new handmade ornaments to the tree. You'll probably recognize some of those from past videos. The kids love these too. It's a win-win. Well, hey, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit the like button and consider subscribing because we have more ornaments to make. And as always, you can visit me over at thedottingcenter.com or on Etsy if you need any dotting tools, patterns, or projects. Thanks again for watching. I am so happy to be back. I will see you next time. Happy holidays, everyone.